Hello, today we're going to be talking about the Rust Doctor. The Rust Doctor is a latex water-based product that you apply to rusty metal. It chemically changes that rust to a non-rusting black iron oxide that will never rust again. So, by applying Rust Doctor, you've done away with any rust issues for the future. Let's take a look at the 3 steps involved in the Rust Doctor process. Here we have the 3 steps involved in treating this metal and bringing it back to a new condition. You can see here that we have a rusty surface. We've cleaned it to knock off loose rust and loose paint. So we'll apply the Rust Doctor to that. It will then chemically convert this red iron oxide we call rust to this non-rusting black iron oxide called magnetite. Magnetite is a very hard surface, so it will protect the base metal underneath from rusting, and you'll never have to deal with rust again. You can then paint it with any color, any kind of paint. You can see here when moving this display around, we've chipped some of the paint off, but instead of exposing bare metal which could start rusting, it only exposed the very hard black iron oxide. That black iron oxide won't rust, so you don't have to deal with rust. You can take and clean that up, touch it up, repaint it, and you have a brand new surface again, and you didn't have to deal with rust. Okay, now let's take a look at the process of getting the metal prepared for the Rust Doctor treatment. Here we have an example of the 3 stages involved here. The most important thing that you want to do is to get a good clean surface, and we have a really good system to do that. This product, Grease Doctor, is a concentrated water-based cleaner degreaser. So you mix water with it, put it on the rusty metal, and then take a brush, work it in, or you can use one of these Scotch-Brite pads. They're very good because you can get around curves and hard to reach places, and that will give you a good clean surface. That'll remove loose rust and loose paint so that the Rust Doctor can do its job. Okay, here's another example of using these Scotch-Brite pads on different surfaces. Here we have a sheet metal type surface. It's got curves on it, and so what we're going to do, we'll just take this pad with the cleaner and we'll work it in really good, and we want to just knock off all this loose rust and loose paint, just the loose stuff. You don't have to get all the rust off, you don't have to get all the paint off. You want to end up with a good tight surface, tight paint, and all the loose rust gone. Then we rinse that off with water. And the advantage of using this pad is you can get into all these little curves and hard to reach edges and that sort of thing, much easier to use than a brush. And of course you can rinse this out and as it fills up and then keep reusing it. So there's another good example of using the pad. Okay, now that we've got the metal clean from our preparation, we're ready to apply the Rust Doctor. The Rust Doctor can be applied with a paintbrush, a spray gun, or these mitts. Now these mitts are really handy because you can use them to get into hard to get at places like this spring where you want to get into, it would be difficult to paint with a brush, but you take the mitt and you can run it around all the curves and everything and get the Rust Doctor on there easily, and it goes much faster. You can use it on sway bars, on wrought iron fences. It's a very effective way to apply Rust Doctor to narrow surfaces. And then when you get done, you can just wash those mitts with soap and water and use them again. Okay, let's now look at how easy it is to apply the Rust Doctor. The first thing you want to do is mix up the paint in the bottle. You always want to put Rust Doctor in a separate container and paint from that container, and then you can also put a cover on that container and use it again. Okay, now you want to apply enough Rust Doctor so there's no rust showing through the surface. And so as you apply it, you can just judge for yourself. You can always go back and put another coat on just to put it a little heavier. However, if the rust is very, very thick and you want to put a second coat on, you want to be sure and wait on the second coat you don't want to put it on until the first coat has become tacky, and then you can apply the second coat. And that's a basic process. Enough Rust Doctor that there's no rust showing through the surface, and you're good to go. Many times when you're working on rusty parts, such as this rail, you'll want to paint the top side and then turn it over and do the other side. Unfortunately, many products on the market take 3 to 6 hours to dry, whereas Rust Doctor in 20 to 30 minutes It's dry to touch. You can turn it over, paint the underside, and then the project is finished. And when you do paint the top side, when you get done, put your brush in a plastic bag, set it aside. When you come back 30 minutes later to paint the bottom side, you just take the brush out of the bag, paint the bottom side of your railing, and then you're done. Go wash your brush under the faucet and your project's finished. Okay, here we are with our finished panel. You can see that the surface has turned a nice black color. That means that the rust is gone. It's been turned to the black magnetite. It will never rust again. And in addition to that, the process has left a clear latex primer on the surface. That primer then allows us to accept any color, any kind of paint. You can also use fiberglass and body filler on that surface, and you can weld on that surface. So the Rust Doctor has permanently removed the rust, and you don't have to deal with rust again. Okay, let me tell you about another really good feature of the Rust Doctor. You can apply Rust Doctor over paint and rust, as long as you've removed the loose rust and loose paint. Now, we've done that on this surface. You can see that we've got this white paint with rust mixed in it, little tiny spots of rust. Put a coat of Rust Doctor on there. All the rust is turned black, and then it leaves that clear primer on the surface, and you can therefore paint over that with any color, any kind of paint. So Rust Doctor permanently stops the rust, prepares the surface for a top coat, all in one step. That's the advantage of Rust Doctor. Okay, so we've gone from a panel that was completely rusted. In order to repair that panel, you would have to spend many hours removing the rust, but with Rust Doctor, you were able to change that to a panel like this. The rust is completely gone. It's ready to be painted, all in one step. Finally, that same panel can look like this with a coat of paint. We went from rusty metal to this with Rust Doctor. Rust Doctor can be used on any rusty metal, from large industrial applications to antique vehicle restoration to a child's rusty wagon.